The world held its breath, suspended in a moment of profound uncertainty. The stakes were impossibly high. In U.S. military command centers, a hive of activity and focused intensity, jets were fueled, prepared for rapid deployment, targets locked with unwavering precision, and pilots briefed, their faces etched with determination and the weight of responsibility. President Trump had ordered a retaliatory strike, a decision that reverberated across the globe against Iran, escalating tensions to a critical point. After the downing of a U.S. surveillance drone, an act that ignited a powder keg of geopolitical animosity, the region teetered on the edge of war, a precarious balance hanging by a thread, until, with aircraft in the air, engines roaring, a sudden order came, a directive that would alter the course of history. Stand down. The mission was aborted, a stunning reversal of course, just 10 minutes before launch, a hair's breadth from potential catastrophe. News of the reversal sent shockwaves worldwide, dominating headlines and sparking intense debate. How could the U.S. come so close to war, teetering on the precipice of armed conflict, only to pull back at the last second? What prompted this sudden change of heart? Confusion reigned, a palpable sense of bewilderment and uncertainty, as officials scrambled for answers, desperately seeking to understand the reasoning behind the abrupt about-face. Was it a technical issue, a glitch in the complex machinery of war, new intelligence, a revelation that altered the strategic calculus, or presidential hesitation? A moment of reflection that averted a potentially catastrophic outcome. The world watched, transfixed and apprehensive, questioning the stability of American foreign policy, its consistency and predictability on the global stage. Under a president known for unpredictability, a leader who often defied conventional wisdom. For a few hours, those tense, agonizing hours, war was not a distant threat, a theoretical possibility, but an imminent reality. A terrifying prospect looming large on the horizon, averted by a single decision, a pivotal moment that altered the course of history. The story of that night, that fateful evening, reveals the immense power and pressure, the crushing weight of responsibility on the U.S. president, the individual who holds the fate of nations in their hands, and the fragile peace in a volatile region, a delicate balance constantly threatened by simmering tensions. The crisis began with Iran's downing of a U.S. Navy Global Hawk drone, an event that sent shockwaves across the international community. This wasn't just any piece of equipment, it was a $100 million symbol of American surveillance, a high-tech eye in the sky. Iran claimed the drone violated its airspace, asserting its right to defend its sovereignty. The U.S., however, insisted it was over international waters, a region where it had every right to operate. Competing maps and videos, each side presenting their version of the truth, fueled a global dispute over a few miles of sky, a seemingly small area with enormous geopolitical implications. The incident followed mysterious attacks on oil tankers in the region, adding another layer of complexity to an already tense situation. The U.S. quickly blamed Iran for these attacks, serious charges that Tehran vehemently denied, further escalating diplomatic tensions. Back in Washington, military leaders convened, presenting the president with a range of options for retaliation. These options ranged from limited, targeted strikes to broader, more comprehensive attacks on Iranian defenses, each carrying its own set of risks and potential consequences. Some within the administration saw this as the opportune moment to confront Iran head-on, believing a strong response was necessary. They argued that inaction would embolden Tehran, potentially leading to further provocations and a weakening of American influence in the region. The machinery of war began to turn, slowly but surely, as the situation rapidly deteriorated. Military assets were readied and positioned for a swift operation should the order come. The downing of the drone was perceived by many as a direct challenge to U.S. military prestige and its technological superiority. Pressure mounted on President Trump to act decisively, to demonstrate American resolve. This pressure came both from within his own administration, with hawkish advisors urging a strong response, and from a bipartisan chorus in Congress. The stage was now irrevocably set for a potential military confrontation. This confrontation was fueled by months of escalating tensions, a direct consequence of the U.S. withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal and the subsequent reimposition of sanctions. The question was no longer if the U.S. would respond to the downing of the drone, but rather how it would respond. The world wondered just how devastating that response would be and what the long-term consequences might entail. The world braced itself, watching with bated breath for the next move in this high-stakes game. The fate of peace in the Middle East, and perhaps beyond, hung precariously in the balance. President Trump took to Twitter to explain his decision to call off the strike, offering his own perspective on the unfolding events. He stated that the U.S. was cocked and loaded and prepared to strike Iranian targets, ready to respond decisively. But then, he asked a crucial question: how many people would die as a result of this action? The estimated answer, approximately 150 Iranian lives, gave him pause and prompted a reassessment of the situation. Ultimately, he made the decision to call off the impending strike, averting what could have been a significant escalation. He justified his decision by saying that the potential loss of life was not proportionate to the loss of an unmanned drone, emphasizing the value of human lives. In the aftermath, the White House carefully crafted a narrative, casting Trump as a leader who valued restraint and careful consideration. The administration portrayed him as prioritizing human life above all else, demonstrating a commitment to peace that extended beyond mere military might. White House officials echoed this narrative, consistently emphasizing the thoughtful decision-making process and the paramount importance of avoiding unnecessary casualties. The core message: Trump was portrayed as a leader who was undeniably tough, yet ultimately unwilling to sacrifice human lives over the downing of a machine. However, critics were quick to question why these casualty estimates suddenly became the decisive factor so late in the process. They pointed out that such numbers are typically a standard component of military planning and risk assessment. Still, despite the skepticism, the official story presented by the White House remained clear and consistent. The president had made a lonely but ultimately humane decision to spare lives and choose the path of peace, at least for the time being. The international community was left to carefully interpret the true motives and underlying factors that prompted this last-minute reversal, of course. Humanitarian concerns weren't the only factors. The global economy, especially oil markets, loomed large. War in the Strait of Hormuz could have sent oil prices soaring, threatening the U.S. economy and Trump's re-election prospects. Launching a new conflict would have contradicted Trump's promise to end endless wars, risking his political base. International allies urged restraint, fearing a strike would destroy hopes for diplomacy and drag them into conflict. Inside the administration, not everyone wanted war. Some warned of unpredictable Iranian retaliation. Influential media voices also argued against war, and Trump was known to listen. The decision to stand down was likely a complex calculus: economic risk, political calculation, allied pressure, and warnings of escalation. In the end, the risks of striking Iran outweighed the rewards. Trump's reversal split opinion. Supporters called it strength and restraint, proof he wasn't a warmonger, but a pragmatic leader. They argued he showed resolve without firing a shot, keeping his promise to avoid new wars. Critics, including some Republicans, called it reckless and chaotic, blaming his policies for creating the crisis. Ordering and then canceling a strike, they said, projected indecision and emboldened adversaries. Even hawkish allies accused him of appeasement, claiming U.S. credibility was damaged. The episode exposed deep divisions over America's role in the world and the use of military power. Was this strategic genius or dangerous unpredictability? The answer depended on who you asked. The debate over Trump's leadership and America's foreign policy raged on. With the strike called off, the U.S. pivoted to economic sanctions, targeting Iran's supreme leader and senior officials. The goal: cripple Iran's economy and pressure its leaders, while keeping the door to diplomacy slightly open. Trump offered talks without preconditions but also intensified economic warfare. Iran faced a dilemma: negotiate under pressure or risk further collapse and possible future attacks. Tensions remained high, with U.S. and Iranian forces still operating dangerously close in the Gulf. Analysts warned that without diplomacy, another spark could ignite conflict. The aborted strike was a temporary reprieve, not a solution. The world watched, hoping for peace but bracing for renewed peril. Trump's decision to halt the strike will define his presidency and its impact on global security. It showcased his reluctance for new wars but also the risks of impulsive, unpredictable leadership. Allies questioned U.S. reliability. Adversaries saw ambiguity. By pulling back, Trump created a fleeting chance for dialogue instead of war. Whether that opportunity is seized or lost will shape the Middle East for years. The moment proved that even at the brink, alternatives to war exist. History will judge whether this was wisdom or weakness. On that June night, a single decision averted war, and its consequences still echo today.